Oh, you again?
Yeah, it's me. Sorry. I just want to make sure we have enough footage.
I'm sure we do. Good morning, I'm Hal Brainerd, and of course my photo partner Aaron Ingram is with us. He's doing the videography. We're glad that you joined us today. It's about 11:30. If you're a landscape photographer, this is the worst time of day to be shooting. But we're trying to show you the difference between f-stops and shutter speeds and that type of thing. And if we catch the most beautiful light for all that's every time, we'll never get this completed. So earlier we were showing you the change of shutter speed with a moving object. So we were mainly changing the shutter speed, and of course, as we explained, we had to change the f-stop with it. Now we're going to be kind of focusing a little bit more on the f-stop. So we've picked out a tulip tree. I don't know that it's the perfect composition, but we have 3 flowers in it, and you're going to see how the depth of field changes as we change that f-stop, and that's why the f-stop is going to be so much more important in this, trying to show the depth of field. If you have a smaller aperture, which is a much bigger number, as you know, so it's what Nikon used to say is closing down. If you have a smaller aperture, then you're going to have a longer shutter speed, and when you have a smaller aperture, you're going to have a very little bit in focus. One problem we're going to run into today is the wind's blowing these flowers, and we're shooting at a small aperture with a longer shutter speed. Movement's going to be a real issue. I wish that the air was calm today. So we'll try to kind of wait until we get a little lull in the wind and see if we can make it work. But again, as we use a small aperture, you're going to see a lot more depth of field, a lot more in focus. And as we open up to a much larger aperture, then you're going to see a lot less depth of field. Alrighty, so let's get started here. First thing I'm going to do, well, there's a cloud coming over. That's great, because that's going to totally change our exposure. It's going to make it even longer, because we don't have as much light being absorbed by the image sensor, which is going to make a longer shutter speed. So hopefully we'll kind of wait here until this cloud goes by, and which will allow me to have a little faster shutter speed. And this breeze out here, we're going to need it if we can even pull it off. So just hang on, I'll be back with you in a second. All right, the sun has popped back out. It's a very small cloud. I'm going to again get my exposure on the green grass, because that's going to give me a good exposure for 18% gray. The flowers are so light and bright, I'm afraid that they would not be a correct exposure. Okay, this is good. We're 30 f3.5 at an 800th of a second. So the nice thing about that is that we're going to have a fast shutter speed with the wind blowing. And at f3.5 we'll have very, very limited depth of field. It ought to be very obvious. So I'm focused right on the center flower. We have, as I said earlier, we have 3 flowers. Well, part of a 4th one. And again, it's not the most wonderful composition, but it is going to really identify depth of field for us. And now we're going to change the shutter speed and the f-stop, mainly the f-stop here. Well, both are equally important. We're going to change the f-stop to a small aperture so we have a lot more in focus. So we're at f3.5 right now. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 clicks, which is 22. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, this is dangerous. I'm going to shoot this while there's no wind, and I'll talk about it later. F22 at a 20th of a second. Very, very slow shutter speed with the wind blowing out here. But f22 would make it really, really sharp. And there was a lull in the wind there for 1 second. So I wanted to go ahead and shoot it. And you'll visually see a huge difference in our depth of field with that shot. Yeah, my histogram's great. Awful lot of contrast out here. It certainly is spread out as far as it goes. So when we go 16 higher, we get it 800th of a second. And when we come down 16 on the f-stop, we get 3.5. Again, a very large physical aperture, but a very small number, and very limited depth of field. Great. we'll show you what came out, and you'll hopefully understand the relationship between your f-stop and your shutter speed, which is so critical, and it's one of those things that's a little bit longer, learning how to understand and what to do. And again, I'm still shooting at an ISO of 100. I basically keep mine on 100 unless something unusual comes up where I really need more light being absorbed by the image sensor faster. Thanks again, and we'll just continue shooting and giving some examples. Hopefully it'll help you in your photography. We have quite a few things that we've got to consider when we take this picture. Yeah, it's a nice sunny day. Come on. You have the content here. That's not content.
Sorry.
This is going to be an interesting shot. It's a beautiful sunny day. We have a lot of wonderful colors. We got, nice rainbow of all different colors here. It's a beautiful shot, isn't it? Well, not really, because it's 20 minutes to 12. The sun is kind of high in the sky. The contrast is horrible. You're going to have really dark shadows, and you're going to have bright highlights. There's a little bit of a wind blowing, so if you want to pick a fast shutter speed to freeze that flag, then you're not going to have a lot of depth of field, and I want to show all these beautiful flowers along with the bridge. So what I'm looking for is a very small physical aperture that's going to give me a lot of depth of field. And remember, that little teeny physical aperture is a big number. So I've picked out a nice big number of 22. That's the smallest aperture my lens has. So I'm going to have a lot of depth of field. But again, because I have such a little amount of light coming through the aperture, I'll have to have a little bit longer f-stop, or shutter speed. And I have set a shutter speed of 30. So what I'd be looking for, and I just clicked this shot off a second ago, I was waiting for that flag to kind of fill out in that little moment just before it comes back again. I think I got a pretty good shot at a 30th of a second with the flag doing that. Of course, if even windier, a 30th of a second, it'd be a blurred flag. And if you want to show motion and you want to show the winds blowing, so blurred flag would be fine, wouldn't it? So you kind of have to decide, what are you looking for when you pick your shutter speed and your f-stop and all those things. I think the daffodils are going to be in focus and the bridge will be in focus. So I've actually focused right down to the end of the daffodil garden, which I feel is about a third of the way into my overall depth of field. Because again, if you focus on 1/3 of the area that you want to for your depth of field, well, 2/3 in the back behind your focus point will be in focus, and 1/3 in front of your focus point will be in focus. So it's a beautiful day. We'll take a shot, and I'm shocked that my histogram came out. I didn't think it would. Wow, it's even a beautiful blue sky. Sometimes when you try to show the overall effect, you kind of lose the effect because you don't emphasize your subject as much as you should. I'm more concerned with my depth of field than I am the flag, though, because again, the flag is so small in this picture. But I would prefer it to be sharp, and I think it will be. That's a beautiful shot. Whoever's put this together really designed a nice shot for us. And again, we're just out running around looking for pictures. We had no clue that this was here. So I was so concerned about the contrast, which I think our cloud has moved. But when I actually shot that, there was one little cloud over the sun, which really did help keep the shadows from being so terribly harsh. So my exposure did come out with just a normal shot without trying to shoot this in HDR. I think I was very lucky, but it is, just since we've been standing here talking, it's got a lot more harsh, a lot more contrast at this point. It's awful nice with the people who helped restore this.
Yeah.
Photography is so challenging because for every advantage, every choice you make that you think's an advantage, there's usually a disadvantage to it as well. So, if you pick a fast shutter speed, you're going to have to open up your f-stop to get more light through. If you pick a fast ISO, you're going to have more grain, but it's going to allow you to capture the light quicker. And kind of the same thing with the shutter speed. Do not get that ISO and shutter speed confused. You're not going to change your ISO very often. You'll be changing your shutter speed all the time.
thank you for subscribing, sharing, and we'll see you in the next video.